I think we're live. Hi everybody, it's Tina checking in with our Liberty Live update. We try to do weekly. We missed last week, so we have quite a few things to cover this week. It's been a wild week for Moms for Liberty here locally in Florida and nationally. So I'm going to give you a lot of updates. Today I've got a special guest with me for Liberty Live, my son who's home from college from Virginia.
Don't tell anyone.
He's just home for the weekend. It's his 20th birthday. He's going to be 20. So I'm happy to have Braden with me today. And the reason I asked him to come with me is one of the topics that I just wanted to touch on today, which is frustrating the heck out of me. He actually has a little insight on. So mostly he's just going to sit there and pet the dog in this really great Moms for Liberty hat that looks good on men too. You like that?
Shameless plug, right?
Yeah, shameless plug. But he's also going to actually contribute here a little bit too. First thing I want to do is give some huge shout outs to our new chapters, because I told you we had quite a few coming on the last Liberty Live we did, and boy have we had a few coming on. So we've had Volusia County, Florida come on, and we're excited to have them. They are already in full speed ahead, working hard to fight against the mask mandates in Volusia County and some other issues that they're finding challenging. We've had Deschutes County, Oregon come on, and she out there, the chair out there, is growing that chapter strong, is already engaged in a lot of issues that they're facing out there. We've had Corpus Christi, Texas come on, and we are thrilled to have Texas on board. Again, another strong chapter. We live near an Air Force base, so I think we're having a flyover if you can't hear me right now. We want to welcome Wright County, Minnesota that came on this past week, and Mecklenburg, which is like the Charlotte area of North Carolina. So again, growing faster than we can keep up, and just like the last Liberty Live, we've got many more in the hopper that are about to launch. So stay tuned for the next meeting when we announce all of our new chapters that are coming on. We've had so many issues here in Florida. I'll start with a few of the issues that we've dealt with in the last 2 weeks. One, if you watched, Tiffany and I drove up to Tallahassee, and we were at the press conference for the Parents' Bill of Rights. This is a fantastic bill, and we hope that each of your organizations will start working on in your state. It's taken a few years to get through our state legislature, and our fingers are crossed that it will pass through the House and Senate and get signed by the governor this year. So contact us if you're interested in doing something like that in your state. You have to find, of course, bill sponsors and such, but we're happy to help and work with you to move something like that forward. Let's see, what else has been going on in Florida? Oh, we've had some, our governor, we put him out on our Facebook page. Did you see the summit that he did? Or I guess it was a roundtable. He had a couple doctors and health experts there who pretty much said kids shouldn't be in masks. Boldly, clearly, and loud. And the response has been phenomenal. Yet, guess what? Our kids are still in masks 8 hours a day. In some of your districts, your kids are in masks at recess. Some are playing sports in masks. You know, remember the video from the mom in Indiana of her son in the mask playing basketball on the court? And he tried to pull it down below his nose, and the ref yelled at him. And then 2 seconds later, he passes out, flat down, slammed his head into the ground. Moms can't take it anymore. It's time to stand up. Another issue that I want to talk about is, and it's really, really starting to come to light, I feel like this week in a lot of districts. It starts with a story out of New York City. They closed down over 200 schools. I guess they have is it a 2-case policy it's called? So if there's 2 cases of coronavirus, they close down the schools, which is absurd. But what my concern is, and what the biggest concern, what one of the biggest issues is that it's unelected bureaucrats making these calls, and it's what we're seeing all across the country in all of our districts on different levels. So here in the district that I live in, it's the Department of Health, unelected bureaucrats again that are giving input on all kinds of issues, and then you've got elected leaders on school boards that take what the bureaucrats give them with their input as the law, and they follow it to a T without taking other things into consideration, like our kids, like our children, like their mental health. And so one of the issues that came up here recently is they are letting children play basketball indoors, they're letting children do wrestling indoors, no masks. yet the fine arts children are not allowed to sing even with masks on. So for 2 full seasons, our performing arts students have had to hum if they're indoors in their masks. And the kids went to the school board meetings and pretty much begged and pleaded. They offered to wear double masks, they offered to stay 6 feet apart, they offered to do absolutely anything to be able to perform. Yet the Department of Health's recommendation to the school district was to not let them sing. And the school district has just gone along with that. And so that's the reason I have Braden here with me, because he happens to be a college student in Virginia who he's on a partial music scholarship. So he's part of the music program. And go ahead, Brandon. Tell them, are you singing inside in Virginia? Tell them what's going on in Virginia in college.
Yes, Commie, Virginia is letting us sing indoors. So I am part of their men's chorus, their men's choir, on a partial scholarship, and I have been for 2 years now. We were able to sing indoors. Simple as that. We are having to wear masks. We are having to sometimes limit our singing time. There are days when we are limited to 30 minutes to let the air clear. And to wait up, give it time for the next class. We do have to wear masks, but we're able to practice 4 days a week with no issues. To my knowledge, we haven't had a coronavirus case since this whole thing started. We did have one last semester, and because we were all 6 feet apart and we were all wearing masks, they didn't have to quarantine anyone else around them. And so
did you hear that? They didn't even have to quarantine because they were 6 feet apart and masked. Yet I know many of your districts and many of the districts around here have policies in place that if a student in the class not even tests positive, but sometimes is just exposed, whole class gets quarantined. Your kids get sent home for sometimes 14 days for a potential exposure. And so my question is, if we're supposed to be following the science, why aren't we following science? And how can the way we're handling this be so different from literally neighborhood to neighborhood school, county to county, and state to state? And I know some of you are probably on here watching and frustrated because you're like, my school's not even open. I want to get my kid back in school, and you're whining about quarantining and masks. But it's relative to where you are and to what your kids are struggling with. And all of these issues are, honestly, the only word that comes to mind is absurd. It's absurd that, in some places it's 3 feet, in some places it's 6 feet, in some places you have to quarantine for exposure, for some places you don't. If you have a mask on or if you don't, the quality of the mask matters. The truth is there's science out there, and nobody's following it. Everybody's picking and choosing. And the elected leaders, and this is where Moms for Liberty comes in, the elected leaders are not making the hard choices. And that's what's frustrating to us. So it's our job as an organization, and you all as parents and in chapters, or even if you're just a member at large out there and you consider yourself one of us but you don't have a chapter, it's time to stand up and speak up against this. It's time to hold your elected leaders accountable. They can no longer just say, this organization advised this and that's why we're doing it. They are the elected leaders. They're supposed to be representing us. And then when it comes to school boards, they should be representing the whole well-being of our children. So if you have any questions, you guys can chime in there at the bottom. We can see the screen pretty well from here. Braden can read it. I noticed on my last Facebook Live, I did a lot of this, and it was because I'm getting old and I couldn't see your questions. So now I've got the young kid with me who can see the screen. And if you ask a question in there, Braden, pipe up and let me know if you see a question.
Sounds good.
There's just a couple more things I wanted to talk about really quick. Let's see. We got the singing. Oh, most of you saw the package that arrived in the mail to me this week. Actually, 1 week ago tomorrow will be the anniversary of the feces that arrived in the mail with no return address. Well, I mean, there was a return address, but it was a company that apparently you can hire to mail people feces if you don't like them out of Pennsylvania. But we have no idea who sent it to me, nor do I really care. But the joke's on them because it's actually gotten us a lot of press coverage. It's gotten the Moms for Liberty name again out there nationally. People have joined us and emailed me because of the story. So we were able to take, what's disgusting and disrespectful and, you know, quite frankly, stupid, and turn it into something positive for our organization. But I'd also kind of want it to be an example to you all that this job is not easy, standing up, pushing against the grain, and speaking out. You will be called all kinds of names, and you potentially could have feces mailed to you. But you can receive it with a good attitude, and you can be strong, and you can move forward, because they're not going to intimidate us. They are not going to scare us. They are not going to silence us, and they're not going to stop us. Right, Brayden?
Absolutely.
And you know, doing this, and if you're a chapter chair and you've stepped up to lead a chapter, or you're a parent who's starting to become a little more outspoken and you're speaking out at your school board meeting, it's a family affair, and it affects your family. And so make sure that, you know, you've got them on board when you start doing these things. I know that this son of mine has always been super supportive. The other one is a little embarrassed of me and wishes.
Understatement.
and he often wishes that I'd be a little more compliant and a little more silent. I try to respect his wishes, you know, with his personal space and his personal stories. But it's definitely a team effort and a family affair. And oh, Brayden, there's a question. I see a question mark.
I was waiting until you were done.
Oh, okay. What does it say?
How many committees does the Parental Bill of Rights have to get through before it's put for an entire vote in Florida?
I believe it has passed all of its committees in the House, so we're in great shape there. It's now headed to the floor in the House. But the Senate, maybe 2 more committees. I might have to look that up. You can send me a message afterwards and I can follow that up. But it still has a ways to go, I know, in the Senate. And then, of course, it has to make it, you know, pass through the floor of both of the houses, the House and the Senate, and the governor has to be willing to sign it. So, you know, you guys have been great. Guess who wants to be? She wants to make an appearance again. I think. Say hi. Look at that dog. Ooh, look at that dog. You know, you guys have been awesome about the calls and the letters and writing postcards. I've been hearing from the legislators that they're receiving them. They're hearing from you, and so I appreciate the hard work you guys are doing. It is impactful. By far, phone calls I hear from everyone are the most effective. So if you're in Florida, we'd appreciate if you'd reach out to your senator anytime from, you know, now over the next week or two, and just ask for their support. Because even if it's not going in front of their committee, we're hoping it makes it to the floor, and we're going to want as much support as possible on that. Any more questions before we... Oh, what's it say?
How do you stop other groups that don't align with your mission from hijacking your message on platforms?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's constantly happening already, even here locally where I live, and of course it's starting nationally. As we grow, it's probably just going to get worse. We have to work hard to protect our brand. We have to work hard to make it clear that we're not a hateful group, we're not an angry group. We're moms that love our kids, and we want to protect our right to parent them, and we want to stand up and fight what's best. Stand up and fight for what is best for them individually, because if we're not doing that, you know, what are we doing as parents? So, you know, obviously there's been groups here locally. We've had some issues with protesters they've protested, I don't even know how to really explain it, but people that don't like us, that like our group and what we're doing, try to clump us in with some people that were basically spewing hate. And so we've had to work really hard with the media and in the community. Sorry. It's a whole family affair over here, the dog, the kid. We've had to work really hard within the media to get our statements out and to keep clarifying that that is not us, that is not who we are, this is what we believe, this is where we are. And so my message to you all out there, if you're a member, if you're a chapter chair, if the media interviews you, especially if you're wearing a Moms for Liberty shirt, make sure your message is clear and kind and compassionate, but also firm on where we stand on these issues. So to answer your question a little more specifically, what we did here locally is we sent out our official statements to everybody in the press that we could get a hold of. And most of them have been really respectful and have printed it, our perspective without turning it around. A couple of the news agencies that do video, TV, segments, take a little liberty and kind of slant us in a little different way. But I think we've done a pretty good job. There's always going to be people that don't like us, but I think we've done a pretty good job.
They've treated us pretty fair so far. We haven't had any horrendous news coverage.
Yeah, we've had some, feces arrive in the mail, but we haven't had bad news coverage. Any more questions before we wrap this up? This is a little bit longer than.
And don't be afraid to comment your questions, because we'll respond to those too.
Yeah, you can comment if you're watching it later, and I'll go in. My son, actually, I should give him a little bit more credit. He's been really helpful. He's been handling a lot of our Google Docs. He's been logging a lot of our, doing a lot of our back end work for me, and going into some of the social media accounts and answering questions when I can't get to it or Tiffany can't get to it. So he is a kid. I guess he's our Moms for Liberty intern. He's our first one.
I'm the de facto mom.
Yeah. So we're grateful for him. Don't forget your hat. Don't forget to sign up on our website under Join so you can get on our email list, because someday we might not be able to be on Facebook. Don't forget to share anything that you see on our page on your social media sites or with your friends. Our goal is to have a chapter, and I've said this before, in every county. That means we need 3,000 chapters. We've got a long way to go. So get to work.